Hey guys, Ash here from C4E Tech, and this is the new Redmi Note 14 Pro Plus. In today's video, let's unbox and take a look at what Redmi's done with their flagship Note this year. So here's the box the Redmi Note 14 Pro Plus comes in. Pretty similar to what we've been seeing from Redmi. This here's the 12-256 variant, the base. This part is gonna be a little important later on. Anyways, once we open up the box, the first thing we see is this white Redmi insert. This houses a SIM ejector tool, some regular leaflets, along with a soft TPU case. And now let's get to the 14 Pro Plus itself. This here is the green variant. Redmi also offers two other color options, black and white. I went with the green because I think that's the best looking SKU this time, especially with these patterns underneath. Anyways, moving on, next up there's a USB Type-A to Type-C cable with orange accents, which is followed by a 90-watt hypercharge adapter. Now, if you notice, this is slightly slower than the 120 watts that we got the last time, but can't really complain about the battery department given what they've actually done, right? Because in case you didn't know, Redmi's gone for a Silicon Carbide battery that's more densely packed. This allows Redmi to fit in a huge 6200 mAh capacity battery here. Now, technically, this does make the 14 Pro Plus slightly heavier at about 210 grams, but there are more reasons behind this increase in weight. Redmi is positioning this as a tough phone, basically highlighting its sturdy build. The Note 14 Pro Plus, it gets an IP68 rating. Now, IP68 is basically testing your phone for immersion at up to 1.5 meters for 30 minutes. Redmi's got this certified by TUV SUD for 2 meters and up to 24 whole hours. Then we have the display being protected by Corning's Gorilla Glass Victus 2. And remember the news we saw a little while back about Corning working on protective glass for mid-range phones? That Gorilla Glass 7i is what Redmi's used for the back. They also claim the Note 14 Pro Plus, it's twice as drop resistant as its predecessor. And they say this is because of a combination of reinforcements for the four corners, the internals being cushioned with a polymer, rubber or foam to absorb the effects of an impact in case of a drop, and the metal frame, which is on the inside. The sides, still plastic. Now what this means is that despite the display size still remaining unchanged at 6.67 inches, the Note 14 Pro Plus, it's not just heavier, but also ever so slightly taller and wider than its predecessor, though they've managed to make it 0.2 millimeters slimmer for what it's worth. Now these changes, I think I can live with, even if you call them trade-offs. I think I'm fine because they've not really cut anything out. The IR blaster still remains, there's NFC support, the fingerprint scanner's under the display, it's quick and responsive, the stereo speakers are pretty loud and clear, and while they've gone for the Mi Icon camera array that does protrude, it's large enough that when you're using this phone set down on a surface, it doesn't really wobble. And when you hold it in hand, the Note 14 Pro Plus, it still feels nice. That's because the display and the back, they both curve at the edges, which makes it pretty comfortable to hold. Of course, the back being glass means it's super slippery, meaning I'm gonna spend most of my time using this phone with that included TPU case. Now guys, this right here, this camera array, we've got three sensors here. The primary is the OmniVision Light Fusion 800, a 50 megapixel 1 by 1.55 inch sensor that we've seen on more expensive Xiaomi models. It's paired with an optically stabilized f1.6 lens here. Images turned out very nice, sharp, detailed, good dynamic range. Those were my initial impressions at least. For video, this phone tops out at 4K 30, that is EIS. Sadly, there's a lot of EIS jitter here that kinda takes away from the experience for me. We then have another 50 megapixel sensor paired with a 2.5x telephoto lens, which again seems to perform reasonably well. It has a minimum focus distance of 50 centimeters to get telephoto macro shots like this. Now the third sensor, it's your run-of-the-mill 8 megapixel f2.2 ultra wide. There is sadly no autofocus, so no macro. Now to the front, we have a 20 megapixel selfie shooter, the OmniVision OV20B. It gets the job done with selfies. Selfie video tops out at 1080-60. And once again, we see that EIS jitter present here too. So that's another con. Now surrounding the selfie camera is this 6.67 inch curved AMOLED panel. The resolution is 1.5K, so almost 450 pixels per inch, pretty sharp. The refresh rate is 120 Hz, pretty smooth. The support for HDR10 Plus and Dolby Vision. Redmi also claims a brightness peak of 3000 nits for that. We tested about 1250 nits under auto mode, and that should be fine for outdoor usage. Now, it's not just the high brightness that makes a display. Under low light, there is 1920Hz PWM dimming if you're sensitive to screen flicker, that sort of thing. So that's a good thing. Now, before we jump into software, a big shout out to video sponsor Anbernic. They now have new color options for their very popular RG35XXSP. The transparent red in particular looks super cool. Barring the new color options, it's still the same inexpensive flip handle that we all loved. So if you wanted to get into or get back into retro gaming, do take a look at Anbernic's new RG35XXSP. I'll leave a link in the description below. Now, moving on to software, the Redmi Note 14 Pro Plus, it's running on HyperOS built atop Android 14. And surprisingly, Redmi's come out and said they're promising 3 years of Android version upgrades at the Chinese launch. Now, this is not something we see every day. Brands at the Chinese launch, they're usually super tight-lipped with respect to the update policy. So props to Redmi for coming right out and saying they're going to support it for 3 years. And the software as of today, in my time with the Note 14 Pro Plus so far, the interface felt fast and responsive. For the day-to-day, I didn't notice any lag. It's been smooth sailing so far. Now, this phone, it starts at 2000 RMB, which is the same as its predecessor, meaning the launch price has not increased. But when so much is baked in, something's got to give, right? And that here is going to be the specs. Don't get me wrong, the chip on the inside, on paper at least, it's a nice little step up from the Dimensity 7200 Ultra last year. This is the Snapdragon 7S Gen 3. Now, this is the first phone we are seeing this chip on. It doesn't benchmark too differently though. And the 2300 RMB 16512 variant is super cool. LPDDR5 RAM, UFS 3.1 storage, the same storage we got last year. But with the base variant, Redmi is actually taken a step back. The 12 gigs of RAM is LPDDR4X. The 256 gigs of storage is UFS 2.2. Now, this is something that left a bad taste in my mouth. Talking about bad tastes in my mouth, as is very common with Xiaomi phones, the Redmi Note 14 Pro Plus. Again, I was not able to run 3D Mark stress tests on this, so can't really comment on the throttling aspect, at least not as of now. Though in my time so far, to be fair, I haven't felt the phone get warm or drop frames when I'm doing something intense. So overall, the Redmi Note 14 Pro Plus, it looks like a very interesting phone. Now, there is a lot to like here and some weird, questionable choices as with most phones these days. So what do you think about this one? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and thanks for watching. Ash out.